Well, the goal is to get this engine out, and that way I can get it to a body shop at some point. One good challenge though is the front end of this car is really long. Got to get that radiator out of there yet. So luckily the engine hoist I bought from a local guy. I got the hoist and stand for a couple $100 off of Facebook Marketplace. He's got an extension on there, and the engine's supposed to weigh around 470 pounds, 480, somewhere in that range. So, you know, we're going to be toward the end of the lift with that extension. We just got to make sure the back wheels don't want to come off the ground when we get ready to pull that. So just double checking. There's a drain valve right here. Just see if there's any. So it looks like there's no fluid in the system, which is good because I'm taking the radiator off anyways. Got the hoses loosened, and we'll get these hoses off of here and get this radiator out. Okay, got the hoses off. Pretty dry rotted. Those will have to be replaced. And you can see down in there, maybe not so well because of the angle, but have to clean some of that out also. So for the radiator, I don't see any bolts along either side, and it looks like the frame is attached. There's a couple bolts underneath, so I'm assuming those bolt heads are welded so we can get those nuts off. The radiator nut underneath, I put some WD-40 on it. Tried to put a 3/8 and a ½ inch swivel head on there. Not so easy, so going with one of these guys, 5/8, and see if I can get it that way. Seems to be working just fine with this tool. Okay, radiator's out. Really no problem. This one side was wanting to stick just a little bit from that rubber gasket type part that's there, but it finally popped loose. From experience, I'm going to take this to one of our local radiator shops and have them pressure test it, make sure there's no leaks. Previous truck I was working on, I assumed it was good, and of course it wasn't. Leaked, and then I had to pull everything back out, so that was a pain. So lesson learned: when you got the radiator out, pretty easy to go get a pressure check and make sure there's no leaks. And of course they can fix it if there is. It looks like I might be able to pull this engine without taking the steering system out, so that's good. That'll make it easier to move around. I think we can take this exhaust pipe off and we'll clear okay. And here we'll take the fuel line off right here, loosen these two guys, disconnect that, and then this rubber piece comes up here, and we can probably leave that on for now, but I'll probably replace that rubber hose in the fuel line. Pretty old. Notice on this side we've got a fuel line. Fuel line runs underneath that radiator. Nice copper line sitting there. So we've got to disconnect that fuel line. Sure enough, that fuel line is really cracked and rotted, so that'll get replaced. Another thing we'll take loose is the block to frame ground strap. Forget about these. You try to pull the engine, you'll just break those and have to replace them. So we'll get that taken off. And we look at this transmission. I was seeing if the engine and transmission could be separated, but we notice where those bolts could potentially separate. That one right there, there's no clearance to move the engine forward, and there's also no separate support for the transmission, so it's got to all come out together. So we'll start taking drive shaft and a couple linkages off. Okay, got the drive shaft out, but notice there's a lot of oil on that yoke there, so probably a seal out. We'll have to get that replaced also. Okay, underneath the car, looking for the final bolts that we'll have to take off. Looks like these two bolts here will disconnect this clutch rod that comes over. And of course now I see why the clutch wasn't working. This thing's not even hooked up in here. Wasn't. So if we take these two bolts, that guy and this guy, and then these two motor mounts here and over here, then I think the whole thing can come out. So more to come. Okay, so I got those bolts off, but the clutch pusher is up in there in a weird spot, so I'm gonna take the whole rod off so it's out of the way when the engine comes out and doesn't bend anything. Okay, I didn't have to take it all the way out, so now that's out of the way so that the doesn't get caught on anything when we pull the engine. And all I did was loosen those guys right there so that this can move around, have a little space to breathe.